Before I do or say anything else in this video, I have to first say that this video is being filmed under duress. I received an email from an unknown email address, basically telling me to hurry up in filming my July wrap up, which honestly I was so shocked about. I thought it was so rude, so offensive. If I had known that this is what would happen if I started a YouTube channel, I would never have done it. But here we are. This is the perils of having 27 subscribers, you guys. Anyway, moving on to the books that I read in July. I read 8 books, so let's go. The first book I read was Tiny Beautiful Things by Cheryl Strayed. This book is about her position that she held as an advice columnist slash like agony aunt for an online magazine. And so this book is a collection of the advice that she's written for people and the letters that they wrote her and the responses that she gave to them. I really liked this. I thought in general the advice she gave was very good and probably very helpful for the people who received it. I think one of the big things to note here is that Strayed herself lived a very difficult life, and I think her life experience helped her to be really insightful and empathetic towards the people that were writing to her. I think the only times when she kind of slipped up was when people who were a bit more privileged than her wrote to her. I suppose I found that she had very little recognition that suffering is relative, and just because people didn't grow up poor or have really negative relationships with their parents doesn't mean that they don't struggle in other ways in their lives. And I think at times she was kind of unable to see that. But no, overall, I thought it was wonderful advice that she doled out. I thought it was really beautifully written. Like, she's a very talented writer, and I would highly recommend this. Tiny Beautiful Things would be about a 4-star rating. It goes above and beyond a 3-star for me. I definitely got a lot from it, and I felt a lot while I was reading it. The next book that I read in July was What I Talk About When I Talk About Running by Haruki Murakami. This book is essentially a memoir about his journey into finding long distance running, what it's done for him, why he has continued to do it and why he will continue to do it, and how his running relates to his writing. And I really liked it. I'm going to list out 3 things that I specifically liked about this book. The first one of those is when he talks about the music that he listens to while he runs and how he felt that the beat impacted how he was running and things like that. I really liked that. And the second thing is that there's a passage kind of midway through the book where he talks about 2 people that he usually meets on his like morning runs and when they're out for their morning walks. And I love that he took the time to write about those 2 people even though he doesn't know who they are and never talked to them. And I just loved how ordinary yet wonderful that was. And then the third thing was his meditations on kind of aging and the passing of time, which I actually found both quite reassuring and existential. Like, it was a weird mix. I think what I talk about when I talk about running would get like a 3.5, 4-star rating from me. It was very solid. I really enjoyed it. Alright, the next book I read is a book that I actually physically have, and it is Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close by Jonathan Safran Foer. It's about Oscar Schell, who is a 9-year-old living in New York, and his father died in 9/11, and it's about the aftermath of his father's death. Jonathan Safran Foer tries to kind of bring in an element of like mystery into the narrative because Oscar finds in his dad's room a key, and so the kind of narrative of the book then is Oscar trying to figure out what lock that key opens and if it's like a message that his dad was leaving for him. Interspersed between these chapters of Oscar kind of going all around New York City looking for this lock are chapters about Oscar's grandmother and grandfather and their story. And oh my god, that was such a long synopsis, but I think that actually shows what my main issue was with this book. There was too much going on for me, and specifically with those chapters from the perspective of Oscar's grandmother and grandfather, there was nothing direct about them. It was kind of like they were written in verse and you had to really focus on what was being said in order to figure out what the storyline there was. That's why I ended up giving this book a 3-star rating. So these next 4 books were all in my Reading Rush TBR, and I ended up reading all of them in the Reading Rush week. Congratulations to me, I am a complete legend. I just need a moment to bask in the success and the glory. Thank you. So the first book I read for the Reading Rush was The Lathe of Heaven by Ursula K. Le Guin. As I said in the TBR video, this is a sci-fi book about a man whose dreams change reality, or like affect reality. So it was trippy AF, and what did I think of it? I thought it was only okay, to be honest with you. The writing was definitely very good. Like, I can see why people say Miss Le Guin, where's her name? There. Miss Le Guin is like an extremely talented writer, but I just wasn't that bothered. I wasn't that engaged in this story, you know? What I did like about it was that it made me think about like a lot of big kind of philosophical questions. Some examples of the philosophical questions that I thought were brought up here: who can play God? Can anyone play God? Is God real? No, that's not one of the questions. That's just one of my own questions. Is God real? So I thought those questions were interesting and definitely made me think a little bit. Got some of my brain cells like firing into action, but it just didn't do anything for me. Emotionally, I wasn't invested. It was too thinky, you know? It was like too much going on up here and not enough going on in my heart and my soul. I'm feeling like a 2.5 for this. Might be a bit harsh because the writing was really good, but I don't recommend it, and it doesn't make me want to read more sci-fi. Moving on to the next book I read for the Reading Rush, which was Fight Club. Why am I holding it this way? Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. Fight Club is obviously a cult classic. It's been made into a movie, which I did watch. I'm not going to talk too much about the plot because, as we all know, the first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club. Blah, 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 blah. But basically it's about this white collar worker who starts a fight club. But anyone who's read it or watched it knows that there's a massive kind of reveal towards the end of the story. And I loved the reveal. I have to say, I really liked it. I did not see it coming. Yeah, I was very satisfied by it, and I thought the writing was excellent. It was kind of confusing the whole way along, and I wasn't entirely sure if I was following the story, but then once the reveal was made, all of the writing made sense, and I was able to kind of see the whole story in a new light because of the reveal, which I was very happy with. I would say it gets a 4-star. It was good, I liked it, but it didn't completely like become a new favourite. So that was Fight Club. Next I read Sula by Toni Morrison. This was really great. The writing in this book was phenomenal. I don't think I have read writing that was this like notably incredible in a long time. The story itself was really engaging. I actually thought from the first chapter that I was gonna struggle with it, but I was in it. I was in it to win it, guys. It's basically about these 2 black girls who meet when they're both young in this kind of black community in America, but it's also about both of their families and the wider community in the area and how the kind of wider social and political landscape at the time affected their community. So it is about both of these 2 main characters, but it's also about a lot more than that. Also, I will say that this book is surprisingly dark and like macabre. There was a surprising amount of like random and shocking death in it, alongside this like really beautiful writing. I thought it was this really interesting aspect of the story that really kept me engaged and intrigued. So yeah, I was a massive fan of this, and I am definitely going to read more Morrison, just for that writing alone. Like, give me more of that writing. So Sula for me was a solid 4-star read, if not a 4.5. Then the final book I read for the Reading Rush was Purple Hibiscus, the controversial one that was meant to match my purple birthstone, but apparently people had a problem with that and didn't see much purple on the cover. But I stand by my decision, especially because this book was so good. This book is about a young 15-year-old girl living in Nigeria with her family, and her dad is a very religious man and is really well known in his community for being very generous with his money and his time. But At home, he's abusive towards his wife and his 2 children. And so that's kind of what the story is about. But then it's also about the 2 children going to stay with their aunt for a while and basically learning a whole new way of living and being exposed to a lot of the joys of life. It was a beautiful, beautiful story. It was just one of these stories that feels so real, you know? Adichie's writing made it so intimate. Like, I really felt like I was there with these characters. For some strange reason, it still didn't feel like a 5-star. Like, it just didn't have that kind of 5-star feel to it that I look for. But it was definitely a 4.5. Okay, so those are the books I read for the reading rush. The final book that I read in July then was Red, White and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I gave this book 1 star and I made a whole separate video with basically all of the issues I had with it. So if you want some drama and some tea, it's not drama or tea at all, it's just my opinion, then you can go and watch that, but I'm not going to talk about it here again because that would be counterproductive. My dog is getting very antsy and so am I, so I'm gonna go. Goodbye and thank you for watching.